can't even get out of my neighborhood. This is the whole review, just me sitting waiting to turn right out of my neighborhood. This is like Forza. The car's just spawning in your way for no reason. That's called the leaving the neighborhood at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning simulator. Very fun. Hold on, it's a very busy road. Let me just get past this and then I'll do talking. All right, hey, how's it going? My name is Ian, and I'm making this video because I want to talk about the Ford Lobo Maverick, my Ford Lobo Maverick, and my camera that keeps falling. Now I'm upside down. I have every intention of fixing this when I can find a place to pull over. All right, here we go. Take two. My name is Ian. I'm driving a 2025 Lobo Maverick, my 2025 Lobo Maverick. And after having the vehicle for a couple months, I really want to talk about it because I think that this truck is greatly misunderstood, but like not in a heroic way, just like maybe we're approaching it the wrong way, sort of way. I'm not a YouTuber, I'm not a vlogger, I'm a hobbyist mechanic at best. That's probably giving me too much credit if I'm being honest. I'm not a journalist or anything like that, so don't overthink what I'm saying too much. We're just kind of talking here, all right? I'm not gonna be able to take this thing on a track or do any of the fun, cool stuff that other people are able to do because I'm just not one of those people. If you want to see what this thing is like on a track, go watch a video like that. I'm gonna talk about this car in a way it's like of just ownership. A normal person, I'm a landscaper, and just what it's like living with this thing day to day. So mostly I'm making this video for my dad, but maybe somebody else can find it interesting and helpful. So yeah, anyway, let's get on to it. Excuse my awkward pauses. I'm currently driving this thing at whatever time it is, 12:30 on a Sunday, and there's a lot of traffic. So anyway, yeah, let's get into it. I'm not going to go on too much about the styling and the interior and the way it looks. Mine is the Lobo High. So I think the big difference between that is those turbine wheels. The walk wheels is what I call them because, obviously, I like them. You cannot like them. I don't care. That's fine. Don't like stuff. Whatever. Mostly, I just want to talk about driving this thing. So, again, I'm not going to spend too much time on stuff like the interior styling. I mean, it's, whatever, a $40,000 Ford. There's not a lot of styling to talk about if we're being completely honest here. So let's not overthink that. There's headroom in the back if you're tall. I'm not tall, so you know somebody else can enjoy that. Also, I'm the one driving it, so yeah. Moving on from styling, let's talk about technology. Is there a lot of technology in this truck? Yes, there is. There is a lot of technology in all new vehicles. I was making sure I had my wallet. There's a lot of new technology in all new vehicles, and I'm not going to sit here and get all preachy about it. I think anything needs to just be kind of held up to this lens of, does it serve a function, a helpful function? If it does, then so be it. It exists. If it's just kind of there for the sake of it being there as like a gimmick, then yeah, that's not fun. That kind of sucks, doesn't it? I would say it's 50-50 in this thing. We can't sit here and say that modern systems like traction control and all-wheel drive and torque vectoring, whatever dongles, haven't made cars better. Objectively, they have. They're safer, they're easier to drive. It takes less skill to handle cars in, let's say, abnormal situations than it did in the past. I'm sure some of you watching this are probably like, oh, that's the whole problem. It's not a problem. It's not. There's nothing wrong with making vehicles safer. Let's do that. Hold on. This person's about to rear end me. Kids in Hondas, am I right? So anyway, in that regard, I think the tech is good, and I'm happy to have it. I do think there are a lot of things that are a bit excessive, like the heat warmers and steering wheel warmers, and really anything that warms something I can do without. I don't think it's the end of the world. If you think that Chat GPT is going to come to life through your infotainment system and eat your Funyuns, then okay, fine, whatever. If you're not worried about that, then whatever, enjoy. I can tell you though that it doesn't really matter if you're worried about it, because Ford doesn't care. They're going to keep putting this stuff in cars because it's what sells. So it's kind of like Uranus. Ford just doesn't care about it. That was a dumb joke. So let's talk about the actual driving experience of this truck. I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to say it. This thing is not an F-250. It's not an F-150. It's not a Ranger Raptor. If you buy this truck thinking that it can do the things that those vehicles can, you will discover it can't, and then you will be upset about that. So I'm going to save you some time and some aggravation. If you want to buy this truck to go blasting across the Baja at 110 miles an hour, this won't do that. If you plan to buy a truck to tow an SVL skidder on the back of a trailer, this won't do that. So you're probably left asking yourself, what does this truck do? And that's a really good question, because I've been trying to work that out for the last 3 months, and I think I finally figured out what it does. This truck is not trucky enough to be a truck. It's not sporty enough to compete with the Mustang or even the EcoBoost Mustang. It's not really interesting enough to be like on the level of an old SVT vehicle. So it kind of really leaves this thing in a strange niche. Like, what is the point of the Lobo Maverick? And from the best I can work out, the point of the Lobo Maverick is kind of like what the ST line of the Fiesta and the Focus used to be. It's not that special. It's not that fast. But it is fast enough and special enough to be just a little bit more exciting than, say, a stock Maverick or something like that. It's a good compromise between something that's usable, practical, easy to drive, and you're able to live with it. But there are some things about it that are really, really cool. When I bought this truck, the sales guy, boy, the entity doing selling, initially, right off, I still haven't gotten over it. It's been 3 months. I still haven't gotten over it. He told me that this thing has a special build engine, and it does not. There is nothing special about this engine. I wish that were the case, but it's not. The EcoBoost line of engines are remarkable for their own reasons. You can debate that because you're, a Coyote fan or a V8 fan or a naturally aspirated fan. That's fine, whatever. If we remove our feelings from this discussion, the EcoBoost engines are neat. They're cool. 20 years ago, if you would have told me or anybody else that we'd be mass producing forced induction engines, we would have been like, nah, you ain't gonna do that. You're not doing that. Anyway, here we are. But that being said, this is just a Maverick engine. It's nothing special. It really isn't. This truck becomes special because of two things, in my opinion: the ride and the transmission. The transmission is cool. It is very fast. It shifts very well. It's very, very, very clever. And if you put it in something like sport mode, you're never going to be aggravated with it. It always knows what you want. It always knows what's going on. I'm really impressed by it. It has something called Lobo mode, but I haven't used it because it hangs the gear up at max RPM. It's meant for the track. So it's not really relevant, because obviously I like driving around in sport mode because I'm an idiot. But the transmission in this thing is goated. It is doing all of the work. This thing punches off the line like you wouldn't believe because of the way the engine is built and the tuning. But we can't get around the fact that it has like 250 horsepower. Once you reach its power band, which is very early on, like that's all you get. I do a lot of driving around town. I don't go on the highway much. But I can't imagine this thing feels too gutsy on the highway. I mean, at the end of the day, it still has 250 horsepower, which I know we think that's not a lot, but my first car was a 1996 Ford Thunderbird with a 2-valve 4.6 liter. I mean, it's a whole V8, right? And it had like 220 horsepower. And I remember thinking to myself, man, if I could ever get this thing to like 250, that'd be dope. And I never did. So our kind of perspective on horsepower, I personally feel, is a little skewed. 250 horsepower is a perfectly acceptable amount of horsepower for a vehicle like this. Now, I'm about to contradict myself, so just deal with it. But I do think that it should have been 300, at least 300. I know Ford intends to release the 300T package, which is an intercooler, a bigger intercooler, a bigger turbo off the EcoBoost Mustang, a tune, and I think like a Borla catback or axle back or mom's back, whatever. Point is, it's supposed to boost it up to 300 horsepower, so that's cool. It'll be expensive, but whatever. So don't buy this thing thinking that it's some awesome race car, because it just isn't. It could be. It has a lot of potential. And I understand why Ford didn't come out of the gate swinging with this thing, right? They wanted to see if anybody would buy it. And I'm going to tell a little bit of a story here, just because I think it's important to kind of be fair about this. But my buddy Patrick got a Ranger Raptor, and we were dropping it off at a local Ford dealership to have a tune or something. I think it was just a tune done to it. And we were standing around talking to one of the salespeople because they had a dark horse parked in the library, the lobby, the library of cars, the carbrary, a lie car. Anyway, there's a car parked in the showroom. It was a dark horse. We were standing around talking about it, and we were all kind of just talking about the different Fords that we've had and owned. I don't think people that work at Ford actually like Fords. Maybe like 2 of them do. I don't know. But Patrick has a bunch of nice cars. I have this thing and a GT Mustang, and at one point I had a 6.2 Raptor. And when I told the guy that I had a Lobo, out of all the cars that we said we all owned, mostly Patrick, because he has cool stuff, the only car that he actually seemed genuinely interested in was the Lobo. I have another friend who, when I told him I bought a Maverick Lobo, he's like, it's a Maverick. I'm like, no, it's a Maverick Lobo. And he's like, what does that mean? I said, it's a spec with like a better transmission and some sportier suspension. And he kind of gave me a look like, oh, that sounds cool. And he looked it up on his phone. He was like, oh, okay. So it kind of feels like Ford isn't really pushing this thing too hard, because I don't know. It kind of seems like some people at Ford wanted to do this, and some accountants and some bankers were like, nah, that's stupid. But they let them do it, but like they low-key slipped advertising a post-it, and they're like, no, don't do anything. No. But I think that this truck genuinely deserves a chance. I do, because it fills a spot in the market that, like I said earlier, has really been left open by the vanishing of the Focus and the Fiesta ST. And I think it's really important that we don't leave that spot vacant too long. And I'm going to continue this thought after I get through this incredibly perilous intersection. So give me a second, please. Okay. Anyways, I think it's very important that we keep an open mind for this vehicle, because it fills a spot in the market that has been left open for a while now. Horsepower numbers have gotten insane, and I'm not trying to throw shade. Like, if that's your thing, like, I get it. Big numbers make monkey brain go, ugh. But at the end of the day, how much horsepower do you actually need on the road? I live in Southeast Pennsylvania, and the answer to that question is like 7. because that's how much horsepower it takes to get from traffic jam to traffic jam. I think that a car's fun factor is really just dictated by the combination of some of its parts and not necessarily how much power it has. And this truck is kind of scratching that itch. It's not really fast at all, and I wish I could lie through my teeth to you and be like, man, this thing is, I don't even know why you would get a Coyote or a Hellcat or whatever. No, get the Coyote, get a Hellcat, whatever. If whatever you're wanting, this truck won't. No. But that said, this truck is not fun. It is fun. It feels fun. It acts fun. It acts clever. My wife will drive it, which is saying something because I've never owned a vehicle she'll drive, believe it or not. So that being said, all of that being said, I think that this truck is a very good compromise between something that's fun, something that feels special enough to keep you from making even worse financial decisions like buying a Mustang or a Hellcat or a Corvette or whatever. I mean, if you want one, rock on, but you know, you get the point. So if you're a Ford fan, and even if you're not, I think that we need to make room in our heart for vehicles like this, and I think we need to understand that horsepower rating and horsepower and torque numbers / rating, they're not the most important thing about a car. They're certainly not the most important thing about the driving experience. They absolutely are not. I don't mean to go on like a boomer tangent here, but some of you younger guys and your M2s and your Hellcats and your freaking twin turbocharged Coyote Mustangs, you guys don't remember, or you just weren't alive to know how hard it was to get power from cars back in the day, especially in the 90s when Ford first started coming out with their modular engines, the 2-valve 4.6, their OHC engine. Great engine, by the way. Like I said, I own 2 of them, absolutely indestructible. My buddy Ty had an SN95 Mustang with the 2-valve 4.6. Great engines. Very, very, very underpowered. We're talking like 220 to 250. Don't quote me, but I think the new edges ended up getting like maybe 260 or something like that. When Ford announced that they're going to start manufacturing the Coyote and it was going to come standard in a GT Mustang and it was going to have 400 horsepower, that was a big deal. It was a very, very, very big deal because power had never been accessible like that. The closest thing we had was what, maybe the Cobra Mustang, but that thing was like Hannibal Lecter, you know. It was, you had to be careful with it. It was a special car. It was an SVT. It was a one-off model. What was a supercharged 4-valve 4.6 liter. So it wasn't just normalized yet, having all this power. And maybe that's why cars like this don't take off anymore, is because young people don't really understand like what a novelty big horsepower is. When I see something like this with 270 horsepower, I'm like, oh, 250. I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds like an appropriate amount of horsepower for a back road in Pennsylvania. So anyway, I'm being an old man here, and I understand that. The point is it's a cool little truck. It is a little expensive. I don't know what to tell you about that. I'm not a finance person. I'm not an economist. My brother-in-law is. Everything's expensive now. I see $37,000 to $40,000 for a truck like this, and my first thought is, well, that ain't bad. It is, but like relative to everything else, it isn't. So if it's too much money and you don't want to spend the money on it, don't get it. If you are interested in spending the money on one, I would say yes, get one. But just manage your expectations and don't be all like angry about it when it's not a Coyote, because it just isn't. So anyway, I hope this is helpful to somebody. Like I said, you don't have to agree with what I'm saying. You can think I'm a complete idiot. I don't care, because this is just something that I'm doing to maybe help somebody make a decision about this truck if they've been on the fence about it. The lack of what I would call normal content about cars is kind of an issue for me, because while I'm all about hype and strapping Airbus engines to Toyota Tercels and stuff like that, sometimes I just want to know what it's like living with a car. So, all right, if you sat through this whole thing, I appreciate it, and yeah, thanks for watching. Real quick, I know I said I was done. I'll never shut up, by the way. In regard to the safety stuff, I forgot about this. So I said earlier that I disabled most of the safety stuff in here, like the lane correction and all that and whatnot. I'm pulling back into my driveway from filming this, and this car and a lot of modern cars have something called a reverse brake, and it's meant to stop you or slow you down or whatever if it thinks you're about to do crashing while you're reversing. I disabled mine, and when I put mine in reverse, there is a warning that pops up on my dash telling me that my reverse brake is off. I've obviously turned it off because I don't want to be bothered with it, and then the car feels the need to then warn me, like as if I'm some sort of infernal moron that I've turned my reverse brake off. It's so stupid.